And now, it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Happy Friday to all. We're going to talk to Mitch Harper coming up here momentarily. But until then, hello, Ben.
How are you?
Oh, man, I'm fine and a little bit having a little anxiety of how many subscriptions I'm going to possibly have to watch NBA basketball.
Yeah, we'll see. Today's a big day for the negotiation rights of the future of the NBA broadcasting.
And we were just chatting about that coming onto the air because I find that stuff really interesting. I know you and I are both in the media business, so maybe we find it more interesting than most. But honestly, I think the NBA fan, and we'll get a taste of this in the NHL, I'm sure, and probably Major League Baseball too. But you're just getting pulled in so many different directions for your dollar to consume the product. Does that make any sense? Mm-hmm. I think about the Vegas casinos. The philosophy was, let's make all of our parking free and let's give everybody who comes in a free cocktail.
Yeah. Potentially a room. Because
we want them to sit there and play.
Yeah.
You know, we want to make the bottom line business as accessible as humanly possible. And I think slowly that's changed in Vegas because, I mean, I don't think you can park for free pretty much anywhere on the Strip anymore. Even Fremont Street, you can't park for free. Like, I think free drinks are coming to it. And the point being, like, all of a sudden they're distracting that dollar. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a Jazz fan or an NBA fan, you know, you've got X amount of dollars to spend and you want to access the sport that you love. At some point, you're going to get to the rubbing point with fans. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. You can't make people jump through hoops to get the product.
We're talking about now, if I want to watch, you know, national NBA games, I'm going to have to subscribe to Amazon, subscribe to Peacock.
Probably, if NBC ends up winning this negotiation today to get the final distribution package of the NBA in 2025-26.
The only over-the-air NBA you're going to get is now on ABC. You can get cable and satellite distribution now only if, and by the way, we're talking about if NBC Universal gets the bid and TNT's out. The only cable/satellite broadcast is going to be the ESPN one. Goodbye, TNT. And pretty much everything else is going to be on Peacock and maybe some national stuff on NBC, but not like...
Yep.
That stinks for the fan. That's
Absolutely.
2 new subscription services on top of you still have to have your cable subscription.
Yeah. No, it's not ideal. It's far from ideal. And the NBA does need to be careful about making it too hard. Now, the owners are going to be thrilled. I mean, they're going from, it's like $2.5 billion to $7.5 billion on average was the hope. On average? You know what I mean? That distribution is insane.
But good for them. I don't care about them.
Yeah, right.
At what point are you taking advantage of your, or at what point do you make it so hard to access your product that you're really doing
everyone a disservice?
Everyone a disservice.
Absolutely. No, I'm totally with you. It's already difficult to do.
So,
and it's only going to get harder.
I don't know. It seemed like there was a real movement. And Ryan Smith believes in making the games accessible, by the way. But it feels like there was a real movement there for a while to be like. And do you remember when local blackouts were a thing?
Yeah. Hey, you didn't even mention NBA League Pass, which doesn't work for any games on TNT. You can get the over the backboard feed.
Right.
You can't watch the ESPN game. You can watch the NBA TV game, but so you can't even get the good games. You get all the rest of the games. But if you're a diehard NBA fan, you've got to subscribe to that too.
There was a minute there where it was like, you know what? We just got to get this in front of as many eyeballs as we get. We got to get our product everywhere. and let everybody fall in love with it. And it feels like now we're in the reeling back in process where it's like, no, we're going to start cutting it off, and you're going to have to start spending some real dough. Joining us now, Mitch Harper. He covers the Cougs for KSLSports.com. Mitch, there actually is kind of a BYU angle to this as we're talking about, sports media and media rights and those sorts of things that, I couldn't help but notice. I don't love the Big 12's distribution, especially when it comes to college basketball. And it seems like the games that shouldn't be streaming are being streamed. And like I'm flipping over to ESPN and seeing a West Coast Conference game, and BYU's playing on ESPN Plus or something. Like, what's your first taste of their distribution and how accessible these teams are going to be in the Big 12?
A lot of big ESPN Plus, that's for sure. And coming up in 2025, 2026, there will be more of a Fox element, so FS1, FS2, maybe some network Fox for Big 12 basketball. The football distribution, I think, was solid, especially late in the season, instead of being, relegated to, ESPN Plus or kind of an afterthought in the college football calendar. BYU was on ABC on the final weekend against Oklahoma State. But, basketball, definitely, there was a push for streaming. And that was, the Big 12 Now on ESPN Plus was, devised by, Bob Bowlesby. And in some regards, that was a reactionary commissioner and kind of league at the time, but maybe a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of streaming. But yeah, you gotta pay to see Big 12 basketball, and that's going to be the case again this upcoming year. I'm curious to see, how much more accessible it does become in the next media rights package, because ESPN and Fox are going to have 2 billion reasons to still want the Big 12 to be in the national conversation in a world where the SEC and Big 10 are going to gobble up the headlines. There's still a lot of money on the line with the Big 12, but yeah, it's becoming tougher for fans. They're being asked to spend a lot of money on tickets. They're being asked to spend money for to watch the games, and in some regards, that's where fans got to choose. What do they want to invest in? Is it college sports, which still, it might be kind of a professional light, but it's still not the highest level of sport. Do they shift their dollars to NBA and the media rights there with Peacock and whatnot? And so it'll be interesting to see what kind of ripple effect it does have on the consumer when it comes to the Big 12 and BYU and Utah.
Mitch, where are you on BYU basketball and what's happened in the last week? Obviously, the huge addition with Chris Burgess moving over. Rumors about Keba Keita potentially following him. I know he's out looking around, but what's the state of BYU basketball after what felt like a low point when Mark Pope left?
It's in a solid place. That anyone saying that suddenly they're a Big 12 title contender, I hesitate on that, but I do think that they're in a position to be an NCAA tournament team potentially next season. The schedule's going to be tougher, and I think that's something that not enough has been pointed out. Is the non-conference is going to be tougher. You might face Purdue, you might face John Calipari, Arkansas team, and an MTE. You're going to have at Wyoming. You're going to go at Providence. It could be a preseason top 25 team. I mean, those games alone are tougher than really anything you faced last year in the non-conference, and then you go up to a 20-game Big 12 schedule. But I like, the pieces in the roster, and I just think the commitment you're seeing from BYU basketball. This is no longer a world where we're talking about, well, BYU spend. No, they're spending, and they're invested at a high level to go chase, and being in the conversation of among the Big 12 elite. And Kevin Young's getting to operate the program that he sees fit. And, as he told me like a month ago when he got introduced, he's not getting many no's. And when he wants something, he's getting it. And they got a chief of staff who basically is going to be kind of like an NBA GM, where he's going to manage NIL. And so then it allows, Kevin Young to, be a coach and, X's and O's and develop relationships with the players instead of dealing with the headaches of NIL. So I think BYU's in a really good place. The jury's out on where the on-court product will be. Will it be better than last year? We'll see. But they're in a good place long-term to trench as a threat in the Big 12, and that's all you can ask for after losing Mark Pope.
Are we seeing this same sort of spending flex on the football side, Mitch?
It's a good question. I mean, I think that, there was definitely a push early on when, Kalani and the program moved to the Big 12 where they added additional resources with the staff, but it almost felt like it was getting more up to par or a little bit closer to par rather than kind of being ahead of the curve, where it feels like, BYU basketball is making a push to be one or two steps ahead of everyone, at least trying to be. And, I think football, it's interesting because you just don't seem to have that, with football, they haven't had the on-field product that has maybe inspired belief that it could be, in the national race. Last year at stretches, there were advanced metrics saying BYU's a national title contender. Obviously it didn't happen. They lost to Kane, for goodness sake. But football, but there are a lot more support staff. There's a bigger recruiting budget but there's always a desire to have more. But I just think that now going forward, if we see a world where revenue sharing does come into play very soon, is there as much of a need for all this additional staff and all these additional, facilities or whatever? It needs to be probably just getting the money necessary for revenue sharing and continuing to operate at the highest stage possible that college football has to offer and be in that club, whatever that ends up being. So, I think BYU's got more resources than they've put off for many years. And I think if need be, they can put together enough to continue to put BYU sports and football, most notably, at the highest stage.
Mitch, you're working on your top 100 BYU football players of all time. I know you released the top 25, or I should say the latest 25, 100 to 76. What's this project been like, and what's some of your criteria on how you rank these guys?
I think, BYU is going to be going into this fall their 100th football season. The 100th anniversary was a couple years ago in 2022, but due to World War II, they had a couple years off. So this is the 100th season this fall, and I think some of the big criteria, national award winners, All-American, All-Conference guys, not as based on necessarily stats. If there was a, kind of a close call on some players, maybe stats could give a break, but some of the best overall athletes, just talents. And, that was kind of some of the key criteria. And guys that just made an impact on the national landscape of college football beyond just simply BYU. And, BYU's got a rich history, and, it's going to be interesting to see, going forward into the kind of the heart of their life in the Big 12, how much they build on that history and what kind of the next chapters, tells. Because, you go back to the archives of, BYU football on the 80s, the 90s, even to some degree the early 2000s, they were kind of a mover and a shaker on the national scale where they were kind of feared in many regards. Still had that, battle for respect in many aspects, but, BYU had, so much cachet. They go on the recruiting trail and they get a 5-star quarterback prospect out of, California, like all the time. And, just trying to compute that today is that just, you can't even imagine that thought. And so it's just kind of a way to highlight the history of the program, because I think there's so many kind of fascinating stories of BYU's history and individual personalities and talents, and putting together and kind of talking to some of these all-time greats. I've talked with, Ty Detmer, talked with Luke Staley, Chris Hoke, many guys over the years that, have made a dent that are going to be on this list. And, they still have a lot of deep respect for, kind of BYU football. So it's been a fun project, and, it keeps me busy in a month where maybe it should be slower. I hesitate saying that because I thought maybe April would be somewhat slow, and then Mark Pope goes to Kentucky. So there's always news going on in the BYU world, but it's a fun project, and I've been enjoying putting it together.
I want to ask you about one specific player on the list so far. Number 97. Now, one spot in front of the Payne train. Man, I love me some Matt Payne. Easily my favorite kicker that I've covered. And one spot behind Reno Mahe at number 96. Have you gotten any feedback from Hans about his selection at number 97?
I haven't yet. I haven't. I got to touch base with Hans and sit down with him for maybe even an interview for the features. But Hans deserved to be in the top 100, and he's in so many regards like that defensive line that he was part of with Chris Hoke, Byron Frisch, even Satem Anali. There was a lot of NFL players, and again, it kind of reflects what maybe Kalani wants in a defensive line, because that's what he knew was big physical linemen that had Tom Osborne's Nebraska recruiting those guys. I mean, Hans was a big time recruit for BYU. He had the whole West Coast and Nebraska when they were Nebraska recruiting him, and he was a really good player for BYU in the interior of that line. And but I'd be curious to see what he'd have to say about being 97. And that's kind of the fun thing too, is getting a few former players chiming in about their placement on that 25, and they're like, get a little bit upset or I'm on the list. So that's been kind of fun to see, to get some text and reaction from that.
Now, I would advise you against sitting down with him personally, but not because of the ranking. Like I think Hans would be honored to be 97 sandwiched between the Pain Train and Reno Mahe. It's the sentence. He was an all. No. Let me see. No, that's not the one. It's a sentence. One of Olsen's career highlights was a scoop and score against San Diego State in 1999, which is fine. But you added, with his arms flailing everywhere to celebrate, and included a video. I just didn't. I thought that part of his feedback might not be really positive.
Yeah, that's true. And maybe I took it a little bit farther with. Because Hans is such a fun personality, and it's fun too to kind of look back. I was digging into the archives too of with KSL and our immense archives and all the content we have. It's like his personality. It's not just like what people hear on the air is like that. That's just Hans. Like even back then, he was this like just such different guy. Even Rob Morris and Kevin Federick back then would say Hans is just his own world, man, and it's just pretty cool to. He was a heck of a player, though, and BYU defensive lines could really take a page from what they were in the late 90s, early 2000s, because if they could be anywhere close to that, they'd be a pretty good defensive line in the Big 12.
Hey, Mitch, am I letting the cat out of the bag? You've got a big interview today?
Yeah, no, I'm going to be talking with Kalani Sitake today and kind of doing a debrief on, Big 12 meetings and, kind of go over to the state of the football program and where things are heading, for BYU football. They're going to be starting up fall camp at the end of July, and it's kind of crazy to think it's only 2 months away from getting it going here. So, kind of putting with the portal in the rearview mirror, with the Big 12 coaches meetings in the rear view, kind of a check-in with Kalani to see where things are at for his program as he gets ready for what's going to be an important 2024 and what they look like this season, because I think it's so critical for BYU to establish the identity of what they're going to be, both defensively, offensively. I mean, everything. There wasn't many signs of, the BYU football team that you saw maybe in 2021 with the violent running game and the physical line play. Where's that going to be? Is it going to transpire this year in a 16-team Big 12 where, yes, there's not a clear-cut gold standard team, but it's going to be tough. And I think BYU's got one of the toughest conference schedules in the league this year. So they got a tall deck stacked in front of them, but always curious to get Kalani's thoughts, and should be good insight from Kalani. Chat with him today.
Well, just make sure you start out the interview with some really harsh, hard-hitting criticism. I hear he likes that. I mean, really get after him.
I will do.
Right at the beginning. Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mitch.
You bet. You bet, guys. Take care.
All right, there you go. That's Mitch Harper, covers BYU for KSLSports.com.
Excited to read that feature.
I know you like that strategy in interviews, Ben. You just sit down with whoever your subject is and just tell them, like, first of all, that's a crappy shirt.
Right at him.
Second of all, your team stinks.
You got to catch him off guard.
Now,
George Niang, you're out of shape. Let's talk.
Let's start the interview. Let me hit you with a really harsh criticism. That'll get you talking.
Yeah. Catch them off guard. That's why the Hot Ones show works so well. Have them eat really spicy wings. They'll open up. Hit them with an insult. Get them spicy. They'll start talking.
And I'd just like to say there is a difference between a, good, tough question and an insult.
Absolutely. I know the difference.
But usually,
George Niang doesn't.
You know who loved a good insult right out of the gate was Quinn Snyder.
If you brought anything up, he took it as an insult. So, yeah. Quinn, who's your starters? What is wrong with you? Why would you ever ask that question?
Did you just insult me right now?
I'm not going to talk to you about my rotation. I mean, we're going to see it. We know what plays you're going to run. Just, is this guy going to play the first 5 minutes of the game or the second 5 minutes of the game? I don't know why you would ask that. You're right. I don't know either. Never mind. Sorry, coach.
No, I just
Talk to you after the game.
I more mean he never reacted well to the. Let's say you want to ask a question about why they lost. Okay, or what didn't the team do right tonight? The question gets framed as, man, your team was just a heap of garbage there in the second quarter.
Well, the problem was he took anything, whatever you said. Like, it could be, hey, your team didn't play very well. What happened? He treated it the same way as asking what the starting lineup was. Like, he thought they were all undermining him.
DJ brought up this morning, I'd almost forgot about it, when he was doing one of his very few radio interviews. He was on DJ and PK, and like 5 minutes into the interview, he just stops, and he goes, you guys going to let me go do my job now?
There were, he's.
I asked him a question in a radio interview about Dante Exum once, like a pretty benign, and he bristled and gave me this, the answer was basically like, how dare you put expectations on Dante Exum? And it was like, whoa, dude, I'm just asking about one of your young players, man. It's cool. And whatever, it was his style.
I've really enjoyed knowing that person in my life for the bizarre nature of it, and because he was really insightful at times. I learned a lot from him, but also it was weird, and I recognized there's weird things out there, and people do weird things, and he was one of them. It continues to just dumbfound me that he took that Atlanta Hawks job.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Because, the Lakers job's going to open up this summer. The Suns job probably opens up this summer. The Milwaukee Bucks job opened up 2 weeks after he took the Hawks job.
I know why. But I don't think we can dive into that in the next 2 minutes. But I mean we could examine as to, because he is a complicated person as we're pointing out here.
But there were a lot of good jobs opening up, and he didn't take any of them. He took the worst job that was available. Very weird. The 76ers job opened up. He didn't take it. He didn't wait for it. It's crazy.
Man, have the Hawks ever been good?
No.
I mean the Nick run. But I don't. How many they made it to?
The Paul Millsap, Kyle Korver team was fun.
That was one season.
That was one season. Yeah, it was fun for 1 year.
Great.
Yeah.
Did I tell you? No. I mean, I actually sat down and hung out with the Atlanta Hawks team president once in the airport. Talked to him about re-signing Paul Millsap, and he thought he got fleeced.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, that guy better be good. All right, stay tuned. More next. Top 3 stories, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day.
Let's go.
This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Time for the top 3 stories of the day, KSLSports.com. Brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. 2 locations to serve you. One on Winchester Street across from Fashion Place Mall. The other Traverse Mountain in Lehigh. All right, Sarah, where are we starting today?
Let's go, Knicks! That was me. Let's go, Knicks!
Ugh.
You ready to change your tune on Jalen Brunson?
No.
He just had one of the most historic series we've ever seen.
Yeah, whatever.
Probably the greatest series in Knicks history since like Willis Reed or Walt Frazier.
With the greatest ever stuff. What? Jalen Brunson ain't there yet.
After Jalen Brunson's
Hit the
41
brakes.
points in Game 6, he becomes the 7th player in NBA history with 3 consecutive 40-point playoff games, joining Jerry West, Kareem, Bernard King, Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, Jamal Murray.
All right. Okay.
Jalen Brunson's the 3rd player in NBA history with 4 consecutive playoff games of 35 points and 5 assists, joining LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Like, what are we waiting for? Jalen Brunson's doing all the stuff. I mean, he's beating MVPs. He's beating them on their home floor. He's playing out of his mind. Unbelievable. 27-year-olds with 35-point-per-game playoff average in the playoffs. Michael Jordan, Elgin Baylor. Everything he's doing right now is historic. He's playing out of his mind, and he was great last night. He is playing awesome. So I'm going to take my victory lap on my...
You enjoy it.
Jalen Brunson is as good as any Knick player I've ever seen in my lifetime because I did not get to watch Walt Frazier play.
When they run up against a good team, we'll see how it goes.
You don't think the 76ers are good?
No, I do not.
That's fair. They're going to crush Indiana in the next round.
Yeah, and then they got a break because they're going to get the Pacers instead of, a decent team. And I'm not even convinced Milwaukee was a decent team before all their injuries. And I love it that Doc went right to, it's the only team in NBA history to be, speaking of NBA history and grandiose statements, of course, Doc goes to, well, we won the last game and we were the only team in NBA history to win a game without their top 2 scorers. And, oh, you guys are lucky we even showed up. And Milwaukee was in deep trouble even before that, but whatever. So they're going to get the Pacers, who can't guard a chair, in the next series. So, Ben, set your watch to this. Jalen Brunson will play, again, 44 minutes a night and have the ball the whole game. And, yeah, probably put up some decent stats against a team that has no interest in stopping him.
Jalen Brunson scored 39 points at 4 consecutive playoff games. The last player to do that was Michael Jordan in 1993.
All right.
He's playing unbelievable. He's been the best player in the postseason so far.
I wonder what his line would be if he played 38 minutes.
Sure. They don't have that ability. And some of this coaching is malpractice from Tom Thibodeau. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It's not easy to play 48 minutes. I mean, here, look, we can pull up Joel Embiid's fourth quarter stats.
No, but when you're not getting stats, Ben?
When you're on the bench.
Yeah.
I get it. But when he is delivering? The fourth quarter. Even when he's tired. And here's the problem. Joel Embiid was tired. His fourth quarter, this is cumulative stats for the entire series. Joel Embiid, the reigning MVP. 6 made field goals on 26 attempts. He had 6 made shots in 6 games. He averaged 1 fourth quarter make a game. He had 1 3-point make in the entire series in the fourth quarter. He's 7 feet tall. He had 5 rebounds in 6 fourth quarters. 5 rebounds. You averaged less than a rebound a quarter in the fourth quarter. You had 9 assists. He had 5 turnovers. He had as many rebounds as turnovers. This is the MVP. And yeah, he's playing a lot of minutes because it's really hard to play in the fourth quarter. And it's really hard to be small and play in the fourth quarter. And Jalen Brunson stepped up. He was playing better in the fourth quarter than he was early in the game. What Jalen Brunson did was awesome.
Fine, but Ben, you can even...
Are you arguing that Jalen Brunson's not playing out of his mind right now? Like, he's playing at a beyond MVP level.
I'll tell you,
this is a superstar performance right now from Jalen Brunson.
He's putting up great stats, sure. I mean, if you want me to acknowledge that he's putting up great stats, that's fine. But listen, Embiid in the fourth quarter, this is a player who's not in terrific shape ever, and he's coming off how many months of sitting on the couch and then getting dumped into the playoffs and then has to perform in the fourth quarter. Yeah, he came up short, but it's not like it's a surprise. He's also battling Bell's palsy randomly.
Yeah, no, it stinks.
I mean, yeah, what you're saying is correct, but I mean, you can look into all this and give circumstance. I'm not going to bend over backwards to call Jalen Brunson some legendary player because of one series against a team that is flawed to begin with. Well, it'd be one thing
if it was one series, but we saw him do it against the Jazz. We saw him do it last year against Donovan Mitchell again in the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's going to do it in the next round against the Indiana Pacers. Like, if a guy is winning in the playoffs and putting up historic stats, it's okay to just acknowledge that he's playing out of his mind.
None of those teams are guarding him.
Of course they're guarding him. What do you mean they're not guarding him?
They'll pretend to guard him. Sure. I watched Donovan Mitchell play defense for years.
Yes, you're right. Donovan Mitchell's a terrible defensive player. Has no idea what to do with Jalen Brunson. You're 100% right.
Philadelphia has 2 players.
Kelly Oubre was all over him. Kelly Oubre is one of the better defenders of Jalen Brunson in the NBA. Had no answer for him. Kelly Oubre is a very good defensive player, especially in that situation.
These 76ers
especially against Jalen Brunson, and has no idea what to do with him.
have 2 players on their team, and that's it. And that's literal. As of today, there are only 2 players on the 76ers.
You can fight Jalen Brunson, be mad at the Knicks for whatever reason.
Whatever.
He's playing awesome. It's fun to watch. The Knicks are a really fun team to watch.
I would not put it past the Pacers to beat them. I don't know if I'd pick that, but they'll get pantsed in the conference finals against Boston.
We'll see.
With Kristaps or without.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll hear about it on national television forever. I'll tell you that.
What's fun about this Knicks team right now is they are not loaded with superstars. This is not a high-priced roster of players that have gone out and have several all-stars that you just dumped into New York because it's New York. This is a really well-built team with really smart trades who really identify with what their head coach is asking and have mirrored that culture. It's awesome. The way they built this team is how everyone should want their team built. It's smart signings, crafty trades, and they have a ton of flexibility still going forward. And by the way, they're playing without arguably their best player, a former All-NBA guy in Julius Randle. So what they're doing is really cool. And Jalen Brunson's leading it. He's been fun to watch.
Next.
Number 2, the NHL and NBA drafts are around the corner.
Got the lottery coming up for the NHL next week, early in the week. I think it's, the 7th? I think it's Tuesday. And then the NBA lottery is on Mother's Day, a week from Sunday. I don't know why they're doing the lottery on a Sunday.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense, right? It's always during the week.
Yeah, usually they do it during the week during one of the playoff games.
Utah has been a 7.5% chance of getting the top pick, which would be pretty sweet.
So the NHL lottery,
7.5, not great.
you're really vying for the top 2 spots. I guess there's a slim chance they could get third, right? But you're really vying for the top 2 spots in the NHL versus the NBA, which is the top 4 spots are up for grab.
So otherwise, they would get the pick? Ben 5th?
Yeah, is that where they are?
Right?
But
I
maybe
think
it's
so.
7th. I'd have to pull it up.
I think it's 5th. Chicago has the most, followed by the Mighty Ducks, then Columbus, Montreal, and Utah.
So, yeah, we will see. They have had equally bad luck in the lottery as the Utah Jazz. And you heard Bill Armstrong joke about that a couple of times. They have not. They're 6th. They have the 6th best odds. They have not ever moved up to the top 2 spots. So maybe moving to Salt Lake City is their good luck charm.
Well, we've got to figure out who to bribe in the NHL.
Come on, Gary. It's Gary Bettman, the commish.
I mean, the NBA, you slide an envelope into old Adam Silver's.
Traditionally, it's been trade a superstar, and you seem to win a lottery the next year.
I know, or buy a franchise.
You trade LeBron, yeah.
That was the kind of how it went.
You trade LeBron. They got 2 number 1 overall picks, Kyrie Irving and Andrew Wiggins, who they traded. You trade Anthony Davis. Pelicans got Zion Williamson.
Well, how did the Pelicans, then Hornets, get Anthony Davis to begin with?
They bought the team.
They bought the team when the NBA was desperate. Remember, the NBA was running it because George Shinn was such a bozo.
And then ended up with a superstar.
And then all of a sudden, we bought the team and number 1 pick. Ooda lolly.
Well, they've moved. Hopefully that's the case then for the NHL team.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Number 1 pick, here we come.
Hey, hope they both win. Hopefully it's a great week for lottery luck in Utah next week.
But as you point out, if history is any lesson, I wouldn't count on it. Do we know who the Jazz are sending to the?
I have no idea. I don't know how healthy Justin Zanuck is at the moment. You know what I mean? Like, I honestly, I know he's been back and doing some work.
It won't be Justin.
I would guess Jay-Z wouldn't go. But maybe it's an opportunity to talk about the kidney registry, which he's been big on. And totally understandably. I bet Danny Ainge doesn't go.
If they move back, I'm just dialing in on the face of whoever's there. Because that is where there is real humor.
Yeah.
Remember Kevin O'Connor's stink face?
When they dropped?
When they dropped the year they ended up getting Darren Williams.
Oh, was it the Darren year? Yeah.
Yeah, because they had I think the 3rd best lottery odds, and they fell to 5th.
Yeah.
And the stink face on Kevin O'Connor.
Not having fun anymore.
Can't believe I'm here.
Yep.
Because I'm sure he thought, like, oh, man, if we get the number 1 pick, I'm going to be here. All right. What's next?
Number 3, Alyssa Peely makes her WNBA debut tonight.
Crazy the WNBA starts already. It's the preseason. They are taking on the Chicago Sky, who features Angel Reese as well. So a rematch of their Sweet 16 meeting, not last season, but 2 years ago.
I do think it stinks that they have to turn around and play. That's not fair. Man, I don't know what the WNBA would do about that. You almost hope that they would give them a break. I mean, I'm sure Caitlin Clark's not going to come into the league playing 15 minutes a night, but that's probably what she should. That's a lot of basketball, dude. They played like a month ago.
And then there's the Olympics this summer. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot. Yeah, it's a major ask to have these women come in and play, turning around right away. And I understand it. You get some momentum coming off of March Madness and the fun that was had and how big women's basketball is right now. And I guess you hope you can follow that up. Also, Camila Cardoso.
So I am wishing good health on Alyssa Peely this season. Good health, because she poured it all out there for the Utes last year.
There's some questions about how her game translates because she's not tall. She's 6'1", and she's playing forward, obviously, which is about the size of most of the guards. But, man, she can score everywhere. She's tough. Good handle. I'm excited to see how she does.
Well, I'd get it. She should wear wristbands and just figure out a way to get a safety pin in there.
Get some tacks in there.
And then she's just got to go out and be physical. Charles Barkley was only 6'4", Ben.
Yeah. No, she's.
I say was like he's dead. Is only 6'4".
If she plays well, she has a chance to be a star because she is so unique. I think she has a chance to really draw some attention. She looks unique. She's got the big tattoo. She's fun to watch. She has a different style of game. So she could really make a name for herself by being as unique as she is.
She's currently better than Jalen Brunson.
Maybe.
She's already there.
We'll see. Well, that means she's better than Patrick Ewing.
She can pack a stat sheet. You know, she'll be on her way. Stay tuned. More coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. We want to remind you our 50 segment is brought to you by Peach Doors and Windows, Utah's premier door and window retailer, combining beauty and technology on doors and windows since 1993. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255, Peach Doors and Windows. We did a really funny thing. Ben and I were talking about this haunt we used to go to that you've been to. And they had a great jukebox. I don't know if you remember that. I think they probably still do. Mm-hmm. But it was one of those jukeboxes where you couldn't, you know, the new ones where you can like jump in line and stuff like that. Like that wasn't the case with this one. It just went by like order. You requested it. It'll play when it's turn, right? So we discovered, my buddy and I, who were not wealthy at the time, discovered the best songs for your budget, your best songs for your dollar, right? And the best song for your bang for your buck, so to speak, was Freebird.
Long.
Really long.
Yeah.
Another good one was Heard It Through the Grapevine, the Creedence version, which is surprisingly long. But you know what we did, Ben? We fired a $5 bill right into that jukebox, and we played Freebird
5 times.
The whole $5. So that would be one song, a quarter. What is that? 25?
Is it a quarter a song?
Yeah.
Yikes.
So like 25 times.
It's like $2 a song now. Yeah.
People were so mad that they left. Like they were so angry.
It's a lot of Freebird.
Freebird would end, and the whole place would be like, "Oh, please, something else, please." And then you'd hear those first few chords coming in. And people, you just hear, "Oh, come on!"
Hey, do you think Patrick Beverley's career is over?
I hope so. I didn't like his act last night.
I mean, beyond the horrendous moronic thing of telling the ESPN producer, who is a woman, that he wasn't going to allow her to ask questions because she doesn't subscribe to his podcast, which, by the way, has been his shtick for a long time. But it's an idiotic look regardless, and it looked even worse last night with the way it came off after a loss, as poorly as he has been playing. But throwing the ball at the fan in the stands twice and, like, really hitting a woman in the face with the ball, like, the NBA should suspend him 20 games.
For a long time, yeah. You can't do that.
To throw it once and hit a woman, hit anybody, but to hit a woman who he wasn't aiming for, okay, that's a suspension. And then you get the ball back and you throw it again, like you're purposely trying to hurt somebody. You're trying to hurt a fan in the stands. By the way, where was he? Indiana? Do we not remember Indiana being involved in the malice at the Palace? I know it wasn't in Indiana, but like it's been a part of this team. And I know Patrick Beverley plays for Milwaukee, but like it immediately brought that back for me, throwing stuff into the crowd, fighting fans, fighting Indiana fans. I'm not sure we see Patrick Beverley again in the NBA. I hope we don't.
I think, I'm totally with you on all of that. However, it does bring something kind of funny to mind. At some point when you have a shtick, it's not appropriate. Like
absolutely, absolutely.
I'm thinking of what was Rusty's saying in Denver? Let's ride.
Yeah.
Was that it? Let's ride. And you remember, like, halfway through that dreadful first season when they took another L, Rusty's, like, borderline crying during his press conference. And at the end, he's like, let's ride.
Time and a place.
It's like, dude, you can forget the shtick. There's certain places, like, you just get bounced from the playoffs and your career is possibly over. I don't like that shtick to begin with, but it doesn't mean that you have to do it.
No, you don't have to do it.
You don't have to do
yourself.
it, dude.
Recognize the situation.
That it's not now. You just lost a playoff. There's national TV around. It's not the just normal slappies in the local media.
And you didn't just have a normal game.
Yeah.
You threw the ball at a fan twice. You hit a woman in the face. Yeah, Pat Bev. I think
so. Maybe
the NBA's had enough of you.
Now is not the time to go with the shtick. Now is not, Rusty, nobody wants to hear let's ride. You don't need to. You don't have to do it. Like what Cam Newton's kind of shtick was, he'd just wear these crazy outfits for his post-game stuff, right? He just lost the Super Bowl, dude. It's your fault because you didn't jump on a fumble. You don't need to. You could just a hoodie would be fine. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Time and place. You can set.
It's not about me anymore.
The shtick aside.
This moment is not about
for
me.
A minute.
The team lost. We lost. I know I'm the face of the franchise. Patrick Beverley's not, but he is. He likes to be a leader. He likes to be a vocal leader. He likes to pretend that's his thing. He's the guy in Minnesota who's jumping up on the scoreboard on the scorer's table to celebrate. He likes to have the attention. Know when the right time and the place is, and he doesn't. And he's 35. He could probably still play next year, but...
Well, he's obviously more interested in marketing his podcast.
So whatever, Patrick Beverley. Goodbye. The NBA doesn't need you. And if you're going to throw the ball at fans, maybe that just needs to be your last game and that's your legacy. I
get the players don't sign up to go somewhere to be abused. So don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody deserves to have epithets or stuff like that rain down on them, and I think it's weird that we even have to give a preamble for that when having conversations. But obviously all that behavior is unacceptable, and nobody should have to put up with it. But why are the players so sensitive about what's going on with the fans? Don't worry about it. God, they're just there to watch a show. They're there to watch play. They're there to get into it. They're there to cheer and boo and whatever. I had a buddy who used to take pride that when every single play, like his mom had floors, her company had floor seats or something at the Jazz back in the day, and he could list you right off the top of his head. Every player in the NBA, he got to respond to him when he was down there. That's just what fans do. I mean, I don't get just move on with your life.
And here's the thing, Patrick Beverley. I know he had said after the game there was a problem with these guys or whoever, and they were bugging him all game, and it didn't sound like Indiana media or Indiana security did enough. Okay. Maybe they said vile things. That's not excusable. Guess what? Take it to the NBA, and you know what the NBA will do? They will ban them. People get banned from arenas far more often than we think. Yeah, you're banned. They have the security, especially when you're that close. They can see you on camera. They can find out everything you said. report it that way. There really is a protocol to handling all of this. And if Indiana didn't do it well, they'll be fined. Their security will be in trouble. But then the player will, or the fan will still get in trouble. You don't need to take it into your own hands by throwing the ball at him, especially in that situation. It just looked bad. Patrick Beverley's an idiot.
Yeah, it looks terrible. No, there's a fine line that we saw in the Malice in the Palace, obviously, is the example. But you see it overseas in soccer all the time. There's like a fine line between 20,000 people going crazy and there being no control.
Yep.
And orderly sport. I'm actually surprised it's not crossed more in this country. And I'm not saying necessarily player-fan fights, but I'm saying like brawls and bad situations and things that spin out of control. I know we all laugh at the football fights where one drunken bozo was falling all over himself to punch another drunken bozo, but like it's amazing that things don't spin out of control more often. And it like you've got to do everything you can to make sure that lines are clear and drawn clearly. And players going into the stands or players throwing basketballs into the stands or whatever, that crosses that line. You have to deal with it. Because what happens when the fan responds? We saw that in Detroit. Yep. What happens when the player takes it too far and the fan all of a sudden is got 1,000 people behind him that all of a sudden aren't going to obey the rules anymore? I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yep.
That the security does as well as it does because we don't see it very often in this country.
So I'll be curious. I would imagine we will see a announcement today or tomorrow on Patrick Beverley's future.
Michelle joins us next. Tim Lacombe at 11:30. Stay tuned. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.